Isaac Simpson, senior editor of Collaborator.com. Welcome to Short on Shorts, our review show focusing on short-form content from across the internet. I'm here with my co-host, screenwriter Kevin Allen Jackson, costume designer Maria Perry, and our special guest tonight, filmmaker Darin Scott. Without further ado, we'll get into our first film. It's a political film. We haven't talked that much politics on here, but we're going to talk about it now. It's called In Guns We Trust, directed by Nicolas Levesque. He's a Quebecois director, and it is a documentary film about a town in Georgia, Kennesaw, Georgia, where they made it mandatory for every person to own a gun. And I don't think anything could be more topical than this film right now. He's a photographer, so it's a very gorgeously made shot film with a lot of photographs in it. It seems to have screened at the Toronto Film Festival. It's a bit unclear when it screened or how it screened because the information on the internet's not great, so shame on you, Toronto Film Festival, for not making that more clear to us.
So maybe the person who was supposed to do it got shot.
Yeah, that's very true. So in light of recent events, what do you think about this town and this film?
Well, it's kind of an infomercial for guns. Doesn't have much argument on both sides. So it's beautifully made. And it was an interesting, in my mind, look into the minds of people who really feel strongly about their guns.
Yeah. It's definitely a well-made film. There's no doubt about that. And what I think one of the things that's most compelling about it is also one of the things that, for whatever reason, and I still haven't identified why, it sort of rubbed me the wrong way. The filmmaker went out of his way to be very fair to these people, right? They are all presented in a very human way. They aren't in any way sensationalized or made caricatures of. They're well respected. The filmmaker did a very good job of that. But at the same time, it is a man, right?
Yeah, he's a
he put these little things in there to just so it was like it was almost like he felt he needed to say, you know what, I don't agree with any of this. I want to be respectful to my subjects, but I want you to know that I don't agree with any of what these people are saying. That's what the emails in the beginning were about. That's what the music is all about. And to me, it just felt like, look, if you want to make a movie where you don't agree with your subjects, then make a movie where you don't agree with your subjects. Don't try to dance around it. And that was my only complaint about the film. But I wish you made the comment earlier that it wasn't really a two-sided argument. And it kind of was, but it was just him making it clear that he disagreed with them and then letting them, respectfully letting them present their opinion. I wish he had opposing viewpoints in it. That would have been more honest.
Yeah. It would have been more interesting to me to talk to these people, and as I thought was going to be the case when the thing started,
right,
talk to people in a place where they don't have guns.
Yeah,
you're up in Canada.
The place in Illinois, the town in Illinois
sure.
that they talks about in the beginning.
Yeah, it starts out saying,
He
this
talks
town.
in the beginning about it. I'm sorry, Maria, you'd say.
It starts in the beginning about how this town made it so every head of household had to own a gun in direct response to a town that had completely outlawed them. Right. So I felt like if they had brought in maybe people from the other town to talk about it, it might have felt a little more even.
I have a feeling that in Kennesaw, Georgia, they sold like 3 extra guns when they passed this law. They already all had guns.
Yeah.
Everybody already had guns.
What's interesting about the case of Morton Grove, which is the town that I've been in Illinois, is that law was ultimately thrown away by the Supreme Court because, what they're saying in this film is that guns are kind of a part of America.
There's no doubt about that.
And there's a really interesting quote that the guy says, look, you can't jump off a mountain and then change course halfway down. And I think that I was confused about what that meant at first, and then I kind of understood that what he's saying is if you're going to build a country on this idea that everybody should own a gun, you can't really change course midstream. And I guess I'd like to hear
I
from
didn't think that's what
Maria.
he meant.
Maria, you were somebody that grew up with guns. So how did you feel about
I'm always really divided on these sorts of things because I did grow up with guns, and so we grew up with this huge respect for guns, like as a tool, as something that's dangerous, you know. They taught us how to put them together, take them apart, fire them. I was like 5 when I first started shooting guns. But it was also something that was like kept locked away at all times when we weren't on the range. So it was always around and kind of, we were conscious of it, but it wasn't something that was in plain sight, like sitting on the table, you could play with it every day. And I feel like this town kind of, and at least the way that it's presented in this documentary, it makes it feel like it's an ever-present, like almost a cloud hanging over everyone's heads, like you have to have a gun. And I also felt really bad because what about like the families in this town that don't make that much money? Guns aren't cheap. Like requiring everyone to have a gun, requiring, like, I don't know, do you just have to have a gun?
One
Do they
gun
have
per person
do
or
they
one
have
gun
a
per
well,
fam-
and it's
per
also
family?
it's just head of family, he said.
Oh, okay.
But do they like require you to have a certain amount of ammo per the gun? You know, I feel like there's a lot here that wasn't explained very well that could very much make me veer one way or another on it. There was a quote in there that I really liked, but it felt very recited, and it came from the girl who works in the gun store. And she said that an armed population or armed community is a polite community, which is true. Like, if you know that everyone around you has guns, you're a little bit like, oh, well, maybe I should be nicer to the people around me.
because they're going to kill me.
Right, though. Like, that's always my argument for my roommate having road rage around here. I'm like, we're in LA, you can't scream at people, we're gonna get shot.
Right.
But like at the same time, that's that cloud that I was talking about, where it's like, well, you know, everyone has a gun. So I'm very divided about it. I don't have a good answer.
I mean, it's obviously a very tricky political issue, right? As a film, you know, like I said, it's well made. I don't agree. I think that he should have been a little bit more upfront instead of what felt like trying to, you know, just kind of suggest, I don't really agree with this, but, you know, I felt like he should have been more upfront about that. I kind of feel, I guess maybe I've just gotten so used to the Michael Moore sort of style of attack documentary that I kind of expect that now. It's like, be upfront about it. But I mean, that's a personal preference. Do you know what I mean? So, but as a film, it's a fine film and it's an important issue. I wish that he had done more than simply document the people in this town. I wish he had really presented an argument on the issue. But it's certainly worthwhile.
I'll tell you something that's funny though, and it just shows how your point of view affects you. I'm pretty sure that the people in the documentary or at an NRA meeting anywhere across this country would like the film.
Oh, sure.
They wouldn't see anything in it, as far as they're concerned, except for maybe one line that was meant to attack them. They would,
Right.
they
No,
would think
and the
it's
people
great.
in the film did like it. I read an interview with him, and he said the people in the film really
So
thought it was fair.
if
Yeah.
he does disagree, which I kind of assuming he does, he's pretty subtle about it.
I don't know,
He
it's
includes
like-
a couple. I mean, the one
Well,
quote.
the emails in the beginning were
Well, and the music is very
my
ominous,
favorite
like
thing
you're
is
saying.
like the ominous buzzing. He
Yeah,
slips
yeah.
in underneath when people are like, guns, and he's like, nah.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of guns, there's a lot more guns. Even you'd think there'd be so many guns in this movie that there couldn't be more, but there's more guns in the next movie we're going to talk about, which is Kung Fury. Kung Fury. That's the porn version. And so Kung Fury is Darin's pick, and it has been somewhat of a sensation. It's basically, if you ever want to know how to make a short film, this is how you make a short film. It's a Swedish movie written, directed, and starring in the lead role, David Sandberg. It screened at 2015's Cannes, and it got a standing ovation. It was a huge sensation, and it was released May 28th of this year, and it was on El Rey, which is Robert Rodriguez's channel, which actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And what's truly amazing about it is
I wouldn't
that...
have been surprised if they said he'd made it.
Yeah, I know, right? No, me too. Yeah, it's very Tarantino-esque. And he raised $630,000 on Kickstarter, and they asked for $200,000. They raised $630,000, and then once it started getting really big, they were like, let's make this into a feature. So they asked for $1 million, and they failed at the $1 million. So they went back and just made a really, really high budget 30-minute film, which it's pretty great. So, Darin, what did you think of this film?
I thought it was a wild, crazy, mostly very fun mashup of every genre movie ever made. Practically, especially from the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, the effects were amazing for a low-budget effort, and that was really incredible. The gore, out of this world. Fight scenes, Matrix-esque. It's a wild and crazy movie. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, I'm next.
You usually go next. I don't know. Do you want me to talk next? Oh my God, you guys.
What did you guys think this movie was about?
I have no
Does
idea.
it matter?
What's it about?
It kind of matters, I think.
Does it?
You know, I actually didn't think the special effects were that great, to tell you the truth. But I thought it was on purpose because I thought that they were trying to basically
Well, they weren't
mock
supposed to be realistic.
70s and 80s special
yeah.
effects, right? Once I got that, the fact that the special effects were actually kind of bad didn't bother me at all.
But they don't feel at all like 70s and 80s special effects because they're all CGI. And obviously CGI.
Right.
It's actually
To
a good
me,
point. It
you know,
has the VHS feel, which is what they were going for, but you're kind of right that if that was actually 70s and 80s, it would feel much more animatronic.
Splattering heads,
I
that are
think,
obviously CGI.
Yeah,
Blood,
but it was kind of all going on in
doing
a
all
video
things.
game, and the aesthetic of it was pretty perfect.
It was
I mean,
very
they nailed it.
self-contained. Like, at least it didn't, like, try to be 70s up until a moment and then suddenly drop into CGI. Like, it's all there all throughout
Oh,
it.
no, from the very beginning.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's 80s. That's his thing is the 80s. Like, to him, he's making a movie that's a reference to the 80s.
Well, the Kung Fu portions
Was
seemed
a little
like
70s.
more like
Yeah,
70s
yeah,
to
that's
me.
true, you're right.
You know,
But
it's
then
like
you got
more
the
like
stuff that's
Master
obvious.
of the Flying Guillotine or something
you
like
got,
that.
but then you definitely have the stuff that's like Knight Rider, and you have the stuff that was. I mean, there were a lot of different television shows and movies that this sort of all mashed up.
Matrix 2
Yeah.
for the big battle with all of the Nazi soldiers near the end.
Which, by the way, is side-scrolling.
That sort of was reminiscent of Raiders of the Lost Ark. I felt, and there were all these references in the movie.
It felt very Iron Sky-esque, actually,
Yeah.
which is a very recent film.
Sure.
But,
I mean, this isn't my kind of movie, right? By now, it's not my kind of movie. The measuring stick that I always hold up for any movie where I kind of have to remove my personal taste is, do I think that the elements of it are well executed? And the only part of this that I thought was well executed was the concept. It's a great concept, and it's fun, and there's an audience for it. People will love it. I'm not surprised that it got a standing. I'm a little surprised it got a standing ovation at Cannes, but I'm not surprised that it has a huge audience and a huge following. I'm not, but I do think that there were too many things about this that just weren't well executed. I can even let go of the visual effects because I do think that was on purpose, right? But there were moments in the acting that were horrible, and there were moments in, there were just too many things that I was just like, this, if you're gonna make a movie like this, like, what was the Power Rangers one? You remember the Power Rangers one? What's the guy's name? The producer, Ari.
the one that they did recently.
Power
Like,
Rangers.
again, here's another one that's just not my thing, but it's so well made, right? You can't sit there and say that's a bad movie. It's just not.
Yeah,
my
but Kevin,
taste,
you're
right?
you're not allowing this to be what it is. I mean, this is a
Bad
concept.
acting?
Yeah, but that's the point.
It's
I mean,
supposed
it's a
to be. It's like a
concept
throwback.
film, you know what I mean? It's supposed to
When was
be
the
really
last time you
ridiculous
saw
and
good
silly.
acting in an 80s movie? No, don't answer that. You probably have an answer.
Well, it's
I don't
supposed
care.
to be
So
also like a
many
video
movies.
game. It's supposed to be like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat all mashed into one. So I think you're kind of evaluating it on a bit of an unfair scale. I mean, the Power Rangers thing was like an updated take, whereas this was supposed to be
Like a schlocky
like a
throwback.
schlocky movie. You know,
I'm
I mean,
just
it was
excited.
Tarantino-esque.
I don't think that well, look, I've never seen a Tarantino movie where I thought the acting was bad. You know, so
that's fair.
I mean, there's been movies that are not my favorite, but I've never thought that there was an aspect of them that weren't.
I think the acting in this was purposely bad.
I just hope
It
that
was.
every character ends up a Halloween costume and a really popular one.
Which it probably will.
That's my takeaway, is like, that's my bet for top Halloween costume for dudes this year is Kung Fury. It's going to be super easy to put together.
Just a headband, Karate Kid headband.
Yeah, you're done.
Okay. All right, there's really not much to say about this movie because
Yes.
it's entertaining as hell. It is what it is. I think it's pretty perfectly executed, to be honest. I mean, I think it knows exactly what it is, and it executed what it was perfectly.
I challenge you though to go back and look at some of the supporting characters, like the computer hacker guy, like the lead. I agree with you. He's purposely bad, and you can see that. You can sense this guy is doing it on purpose. The computer hacker guy felt like his buddy that he pulled into the film that had never been in a movie before.
But see, and this raises a good question about a movie like this, which is, if a movie is purposefully bad, is there really any point in talking about its good qualities? Because, you know, you're talking about the acting in this
being
movie.
perfectly bad. Being purposely bad. There is a skill to that.
So what's purposely bad? What's something that's purposefully bad that you like?
You know, the first thing that's coming into my head, I mean, obviously you're just hitting me with this question, but the first thing that comes into my head are a lot of the Christopher Guest movies. Like Best in Show and Waiting for Guffman, right? Waiting for Guffman is a brilliant example of it, right? Because he's so bad at what he does, right? But the actor is brilliant at being bad. Right?
Okay.
You know what I
There's
mean?
a capability of being brilliant at being bad that perhaps was missing in Kung Fury.
Fury.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. Our next film is Immersion, which is a bit of a mystery, to say the least. Another strange pick for Maria.
Sorry. There's no brutal murders in this one. Like, you don't see people dismembered. So I broke my streak.
But there's many more violent crimes against the viewer in this film. Anyway, written and directed by Raphael Rogers and starring Stephen Hendricks. It was released in March 2015 and unsurprisingly was not chosen for any film festivals. It's a sci-fi short not to be confused with another film with the exact same name about an immigration movie. So we're not talking about that movie. We're talking about a sci-fi film called Immersion. So Maria, why don't you tell us what happens in this movie, because I have no idea.
Well, it's a really cool sci-fi thing that it's a system put in place by the government that criminals basically have immersion therapy, which is all done by robots and computers, and they reprogram you into ideal citizens, which is a cool concept. I've seen it done, like, touched on. It's a thing that they have in an episode of, like, Babylon 5, and I'm always like, yeah, just a movie of that. So when it started, I was like, oh, cool, this is exactly my line of thinking. So I picked it. The problem is that halfway through it turns into a trailer. It's like a short film for half of the movie, and then it turns into a trailer for the long version of the movie that doesn't exist yet. I do want to see it, but it doesn't exist yet.
And then it ends with 5 minutes of credits. After a 7-minute movie.
Well, everybody needs their credit.
It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Beautifully
like,
made.
The
It's pretty.
locations are gorgeous. It's not empty sci-fi. They're like touching things and things are happening. And I'm excited about that. I'm always excited when that happens.
The landscape and everything was a little bit ex machina, you know, in terms of where it was. And actually the way it was shot reminded me sometimes, you know, of that.
Well,
probably
some
not.
of
I'm
it
thinking
felt
the
like
other
it was shot like a movie, and then other parts of it felt like it was shot like an action sports thing. And you could there was definitely it felt like they were using different cameras at different times, and it just it stylistically sort of started going all over the place.
A lot of Minority Report in there.
Yeah, there's definitely some Minority Report, and I wish that the whole movie had been either that or a sports movie, right? an action sports sort of thing. And it was just kind of didn't know what it wanted to be, I think. And, yes, it was a really big surprise that halfway through it turned into a trailer.
Hey, at least it surprised you.
Yeah, no, that's true. It was definitely a surprise. And the visual effects for for a low budget independent movie were pretty good, I think. I do think that if you have the patience to pull out that concept from it, that is a cool concept. I agree with that. I guess it was in the trailer part of this where they just cut to that blonde woman and she says, "You're different," and then they cut away. Like, I hate really vague lines like that in trailers.
Okay,
like,
guys.
that says
Well,
to me
every trailer has that
this
now.
is going to be a really
Are the
bad movie.
chosen one.
But it's not even a movie. I mean, like, look, I get it. From a visual aspect, fine. There's a cool Ex Machina location, right?
Yeah.
Like in the jungle that we get for like a second. But from a narrative perspective, this is like an F-. I mean, this is like as bad as a movie could possibly be.
I don't
From a
know
narrative
about
perspective?
It's a
I've seen-
trailer that's part of
seen
it's
some work
like
on
what?
I don't. Here's the way I guess I look at it. I would say that it was a mistake. I think that because you said you either spoke to the filmmaker or you read that they're pitching, right? They're using this as a pitch tool, and that's fine.
It's a resume.
I
This
mean,
is a resume.
And that's
Which
that's
many
a good
shorts
way to
are,
put it.
okay.
And I think if that's what they intended to do with it, and you just wanted to show it to executives, then that's great, right? But to put it out there as a short film, and especially not to even mention in the description, oh yeah, halfway through it turns into a trailer.
It could have used a title card. Trailer.
Trailer now. Now
Exactly.
it's a trailer.
Yes.
I mean, this is
That
like
was a
writing a
little
short
weird.
story, and halfway through the short story, the writer's resume is in the short story, and then it's over.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty much
That was a little
so
weird. I mean, there's no way around it. It was strange. It was very strange.
It should have been just two
But
separate
I mean, it
links.
is. But
Just make
separate
one and
them.
the
to
other.
be
Just make
fair-
the trailer.
No,
Just
to
make the
be
trailer.
fair, for an independent, low-budget movie, it does have good visual effects, and the concept is interesting. I could see even these guys making a really good movie out of this.
I'm still excited to see like the rest of the story. The problem is just that it's not in what's being touted as a short film.
Yeah, that's the problem with it.
I don't know. I think Raphael Rogers should be ran out of town by an angry crowd.
Oh, come now.
Just kidding, Raphael. You got a lot of potential. Just, you gotta hone
No,
it
you
down.
have destroyed this guy's career and life. Just that statement right there, he will be crying
no.
himself
I'm
to
just
sleep.
kidding. Hey, he made something, he put it out there, and it looks great. It's just, for a short film. I mean, this is why we review short films. It's a weird category,
Right.
All right, last film, Pink Grapefruit, directed by Michael Mohan and written by Michael Mohan and Chris Levitis. It's starring Wendy Malum, Neera Kirkpatrick, Matt Peters, and Nathan Stewart Jarrett. It premiered at the 2015 Sundance and won the Jury Award at South by Southwest. So,
Really?
yeah. Like Kung Fury, it is a very highly lauded film. It's about people who go to the desert and they rent a house, as many people do in the desert. I did that for my birthday recently. And but it's a couple, and then they bring their two single friends to sort of force put them together, right? And
That's the worst blind date ever, by the way. It's like a weekend retreat, like a 4-day weekend retreat, where you're just like, hey, this is your blind date. It's gonna be us and you guys. Okay, bye. I can't imagine. I would shoot any friends. Not literally. I can't say that now. I would probably be really angry at any friends. I don't own a gun. So I would be very mad at any friends that dragged me into a desert and did that.
Yeah.
But they knew when they went there
But-
that was going to happen.
But if it was Nathan, like, that'd be okay. Like, I'm down with that. If they actually bring...
That dude is a survivor. He is the only cast member of Misfits to make it to the last season. Everybody else got taken out on the way.
That's so much.
what is Misfits?
It's this
It's
awesome show from
It's a
England.
cool British
It's like
series, sci-fi.
It's kind of like Heroes. It's basically a bunch of like kids who are doing community service and they get struck by a magic storm or something and they all crop up with powers, but they're all like kind of criminals. So they're running around fighting other people with powers. I'm not doing it justice. It's fucking amazing.
It's a good show.
But yeah, so he's one of the characters from that and I love him.
Yeah, this movie had a strange sort of underlying ominousness or a strange kind of like
Well,
There's a weird
Strange.
feel. I started to feel. Did anybody else get this?
Well, this was my choice. So.
Perceived. Okay.
Yeah.
Towards the end, I got the idea, at least the way I was perceiving the way that the couple who brought them together was acting, that each one had picked someone. It was almost like she had picked the guy. The wife had picked the guy because she was really into the guy.
Oh,
And,
okay.
and the husband had picked the girl because he was really into the girl, because they both seemed very disturbed seeing them actually
Yes.
make it
See,
together.
I
I
didn't-
think that's dead on.
I
I think
didn't,
that's exactly right.
That's what I
Yeah,
perceived.
I didn't get the part that they were into them, but the reason I picked this film is because they took. He did something I think that is very hard to do. This story is so done. We've seen this so many times. Bringing the friends together, forcing them together, the blind date. We've seen that a million times, right? So he's got an uphill battle, right? Because this is also like the anti-VFX movie, right? There's nothing like that in it. It's just basically a straight drama, right? So what are you going to do? What's the new thing that you're going to bring to the storytelling, to this particular situation that we've seen before, to make it relevant? And I think the thing that he did, the way that I interpreted what you're talking about, and it's exactly why I picked this film, is because it has this dark underbelly of this couple that brought them together because they wanted to see them fail. That's the way I interpreted it.
That's interesting.
And then and you don't know that at first. You think it's just this, oh, we're setting our friends up movie, right? And you've got this really charming lead couple. He's great. She's really kind of goofy and sweet. You want them to succeed. You want them to get together. It's sort of fun to watch them because they're really awkward. And then you've got this really dark, sort of ugly thing happening that he only lets you know about in little drips and drabs, very slowly and subtly throughout the movie.
And that's why it's a great movie for that reason. I mean, I think you guys are both right, that there's so much happening under the surface.
Right.
Well, you
in this
notice
movie.
as the new couple gets closer and closer together, the married couple gets further and further apart.
Exactly.
Right.
And I think
And-
that's really kind of like, that's what I took away from it, was you're seeing this new love kind of starting and this other love kind of drifting away. And as they're watching the new couple going, oh yeah, we used to be like that, weren't we cute? And then like seeing the stark difference between where they are now and where they started out.
It feels like love in this household is a zero-sum element.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's like, because at
goes
first
to
the
them,
married
yeah.
couple, they're making out in the pool, they're...
But even
So, you
before
know,
they do that, there's comments of
by
like,
the morning,
oh,
they
he
want
used
nothing
be
to do
hot.
with each other.
Well, and like you're saying, I think they want them to fail.
Yeah.
I think, and that's why they're there, because they kind of can survive. As you're saying, it's a zero-sum game as long as these people don't fail.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the underlying themes, the director said, relationships either die because there's a lack of emotional connection or a lack of sexual connection. But if this couple has been together for a very long time, which is clear that it is there any way for that to survive? I mean, like, that's the thing that bothered me about it is, like, I mean, you know, what are they supposed to do?
I mean, maybe not set their friends up to fail.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a douchebag move. I don't care
I think,
who you
you know,
are.
I think that this was two people who, you know, maybe at some point in their lives were kind of good people, but have just gotten so bitter that they need to see other people fail. I mean,
just
because they
saying.
say it in the beginning. They say, you know, she always screws these things up. And the movie starts with her even saying, I always screw these things up. And then there's a scene where she's like, you know what, I don't want to screw it up this time, right? They expect her to screw it up,
Yeah.
right? And they want her to fail. And then they're mortified in the end about the irony of the fact that they may have brought together two people who actually do really love each other and are going to wind up getting married, right? And it is very dark, and there's something very, very cynical about it.
Which is cool.
But
like
what
that.
are they supposed to do? Like, I don't know, go introduce a new kink or go to like a sex store or something.
Yeah,
Don't
but you
be
can't do that
douchebags to your
forever,
friends.
You know, you
Well,
can't.
maybe
do
that will be
forever.
the
But
after
you
the
could find,
credit scene.
I don't
will
know,
be
like
in a
go
lace
try,
sex shop.
I don't know, go try BDSM or something and then talk about it afterwards. You could find a growing closer, like some other way other than torturing your poor friends who are like destined to fail.
Yeah, and it
How
didn't
are they
work.
supposed to?
I
don't know.
I think they clearly were trying to do this to satisfy something for themselves, and it didn't work, and it was It was horrible for them.
But to paint them as the bad, I mean, like, look, it's a great movie. Obviously, there's so much subtle stuff going on. That's why we're talking about it. But talking about the thing that it's about, is there any way to actually maintain that spark for an entire lifetime of a relationship?
Well, apparently there is, because some people do it,
Right.
but it's very difficult.
I think that ultimately what the movie says is that you get to a point where you're desperate to try to do that, and you will do even the most despicable things to try to do that. I think ultimately that's what the movie is about. By the way, I had to ask this. I promised myself that I would ask this. What did you guys think the title meant?
Oh, yeah. That's actually a good question. I have no clue. I mean, they were holding the pink grapefruits at a certain point.
Well,
but
this
I
is
don't
what
know.
I thought, right? And this may be a total over-intellectualization, maybe.
Oh boy, please.
But, no, it's actually kind of simple. I think that if you think about what a pink grapefruit is, there's part of it that's really sweet and there's part of it that's bitter, right? And I thought that those two parts of the grapefruit were the two couples.
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah, the
That's-
skin
that's
is
smart.
grown
That's
on the
cute.
outside, like the lushness, and they're trying to get back to the inside. Yeah, that's probably what it means. Great film, though. Really, really, really good movie.
Love the way it was edited.
Yeah,
The editing style, it reminded me of the
very,
one of my
very
favorite
good points.
sequences in the movie Out of
Okay.
George Clooney film Out of Sight,
Great film, yeah.
where they meet in the bar,
Mm-hmm,
and then it's cut together with their lovemaking or prelude to lovemaking later.
I mean,
and it just the style of the way it was cut and music, it evoked a feeling of that. I remembered that scene.
That's definitely true, and I think for me the reason why both of those moments work in both films is because when you first meet someone and you're really attracted to them, that's what it is. It's the moments, it's the little details that you notice. It's not you lose the forest for the trees when you first fall in love, right?
Yeah.
And that's what that effectively communicates. I think.
Yeah.
See, it
But the
reminded-
problem is that goes away eventually.
Oh,
you
sure.
know, no matter what, no matter who it is, no matter how exciting it is. So,
See, it kind of reminded me
It's
of
a chemical certainty.
yeah.
there's a movie called Perfume: Story of a Murder.
Good
So
film.
I'm just gonna relate
Oh
that.
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
But
Good
in
movie.
that one, it does a lot of really good close-ups on sources of smells because you can't communicate smell through a TV. And I feel like this one was very much communicating like pheromones because you go in on pulse points, you go in on like not necessarily erogenous zones, but like places that are kind of sexy, like right here where
Yeah,
your ear
that
and your neck
scene.
join. It's very much highlighting like specific parts of a body, not necessarily the first things you notice. It doesn't really like, oh, I'm not going to close up on just her sparkling eyes or whatever. It's very much like a reactive thing,
Yeah.
I think.
Very, very good point. Before we leave, we have to hear from you, Darin. What's going on with your career? What are you doing these days?
Right now, I'm getting ready to shoot an independent film here in LA. We're going to start shooting on July 13th. It's going to be a little teenager gets kidnapped drama that'll probably go to television.
Cool.
And after that,
What's it called? What's the name?
I Know Where Liza Is.
I know where Liza is.
Yes.
Okay.
Where Liza is. Now where
And
lies.
huh?
Lies.
I know where the lies lie. I know where they lie. And after that, I may be doing a sequel to a film I did 20 years ago, actually, called Tales from the Hood. And
Oh, yeah.
so we're planning on doing a sequel to that called Tales from the Crib.
Oh, I get it. Nice.
Spooky house crib. You know.
I
You
get the reference.
And we're subtle. We're very subtle, like this last
You
one.
did
It's very
Tales from the
subtle.
Hood?
wrote and produced it.
Oh yeah, I know Tales from the Hood.
Thank you. Well, I shouldn't say thank you. You like it?
I liked it, so
Oh, well,
thank you.
then.
I should be thanking you.
Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much. Tune in 2 weeks, a fortnight, for our next episode. Goodbye.
Take care, everybody.